Welcome to Estimating TV. I'm Mark Lolleman.
And I'm John Miller.
Today in this segment we're going to be talking about understanding the scope for any particular project that you might be bidding out there. Well, one of the first things that we want to really talk about is the scope. So many contractors out there, when they get involved with the new project there, John, they don't understand that it's very, very important for them to dig into the specifications of the project, understand their scope of work that for their requirements that they need to meet, such as if they're an electrical contractor, they need to find out what they're responsible for. If they're plumbing or HVAC or whatever trade you might be in, it's very, very important that they understand exactly what their duties are on that project before they ever start to estimate. Because one of the biggest mistakes that they can make out there is that they actually go and they just start estimating a job. They figure the wrong type of material, and the next thing you know, once you install that material, they're going to be basically having you remove it off that job site and putting in what you need to be putting in there. So it can be very, very costly if you don't estimate the job with the right specs and the scope of work. You really need to make sure that you understand your portion of the scope.
Absolutely.
Now, the first thing that we want to do is we want to dig into the specifications. If you have specifications, you want to try to find those and make sure that you figure out what you're responsible for. So the best thing to do is you want to open up the front of the spec. That's usually where you want to start. It can be in the front, like summary of work on this particular project here that we have in front of us. Sometimes you want to really familiarize yourself with the front of the spec. Make sure that there's no allowances that might be in there for your trade or anything. Then what you want to do is you want to kind of flip through here and try to figure out where your trade is on the project. So you were a former electrical contractor there, yes, John. So we would actually go to Division 16, and there's different divisions based on the code out there. Not all of them are Division 16. It can be, what are some of the other divisions that you've seen out there, John?
Division 26.
26.
Division 13.
This depends on the architect and so forth. So once you actually figure out what you need to do in the spec book, understanding your scope of work that you're responsible for, then you want to go back to your division that you're actually in, figure out exactly what the specifications are that you need to follow. Another thing is if there is no spec book, a lot of times what you'll find out is on the blueprints. A lot of times on the front you can see there's a lot of specifications, scope, requirements for your type of trade and things like that. So like for you, electrical, you would be basically concentrating on this last section here, all the E drawings, or if you're plumbing, it'd be the P drawings, or mechanical, the M drawings, and so forth. But you definitely do not want to ignore the front of this. You want to definitely look at the architectural drawings and really familiarize yourself with it. But what you want to do is you want to pretty much just kind of flip through your drawings. You want to figure out, like once you go back into your section here, the electrical drawings, you would get into the specifications. A lot of times you want to familiarize yourself with the notes and different things like that. Now, John, some of the things that you have done before when you were a former contractor and some of the things that you know now, what are some of those differences that you see that you can tell everybody here about some of the things you really need to look for?
Well, some of the things you really need to pay attention to is like who's responsible for the trenching. That can be a huge, huge part of your bid. And if the general contractor is including it in on his bid, then you want to make sure that you're excluding it on yours and not including it, because your price is going to be astronomical compared to your competition. So you want to make sure that things like, and involves in the trenching, what kind of backfill is used. If you can get away with the lesser grade backfill, or does it need to be a premium backfill? The concrete encasement on your feeders, that can be some high dollar stuff as well. So you really need to pay attention to that when you're bidding that job to find out who's responsible for that site, because it could really have a huge effect on the outcome of your
Great point. Now, some of the things that we basically teach is that even though if they call it out in the specifications for you to supply the trenching, a lot of times what you can do is you can give the contractor a call and find out if you can exclude it, or maybe they can get a price from someone else. So even though it's part of your specifications, you can always sometimes exclude that out of your bid on your bid proposal. And when you exclude it, then that actually passes that responsibility over to the general contractor, the owner, or whoever you're submitting that bid to. But it's a good thing to let them know ahead of time.
A lot of times too, on a job of particular size, they'll have a site contractor that's already doing some of the site, like pole bases or site lighting, trenching, excavating, things like that, and you won't need to include that, so it's extra time that you'd be putting on your bid, and that time is money to you when you have to spend it to estimate the job or track down a price from one of your suppliers when you don't even need to include the bid. So another thing to check on there.
Great point. Well, again, you really want to make yourself familiarize yourself with the specification books. If there is not one, definitely go through all the drawings. You really want to make yourself visualize these drawings so that you can get yourself a 3D picture of this. Because the last thing you want to be doing is working in an area that you figure out once you're on the job site it has 20-foot ceilings and you were actually only figuring for 10. So you really want to give yourself a visual representation of the project. So the only way you're going to be able to do that is going through all the architectural drawings, the cross sections and different things like that. Really get yourself a good picture of it. That way when you're on your sheets and you're doing your takeoff, you know ceiling heights, you know the different types of material, whether it's wood studs or steel studs, different types of structure for the roof. I mean, all these things are extremely important. You really, really want to dig into these specs and really fully understand your part of the project before you ever start your estimate.